Hey everybody, it's Amanda Christine here, and in my last video, I described a new beginning, specifically regarding my misophonia. Today, I'm going to talk about in more detail, what misophonia is and how I used to cope with it and how I'm currently coping with it now. Anywho, basically, as I said last time, misophonia literally translates to a hatred of sound. If you were to break the word down literally, but it's more than hatred of sound. It's aversion to specific noises and sounds, not hyperacusis, which would make you perceive everything as louder than usual. So you're sensitive to everything, and that could be like that for somebody on the autism spectrum, which is where I'm at as well, on the mild end of the spectrum. But anywho, yeah, so misophonia basically is aversion to specific noises and sounds that elicit an emotional reaction. You get triggered, and your response is to either curse somebody out or leave the room, leave the place you're at entirely or temporarily, whatever you have to do. Yeah, so as I've read in the past, not everybody who's diagnosed with misophonia has autism, and not every person on the spectrum is going to have misophonia or have sensitive hearing issues in general. I just happen to be the person who was diagnosed with both, as well as OCD, and of course, as I mentioned in my last video, PMDD, which was the most recent, which I'll go into detail about in another video. Anyway, in the past, when it first started to rear its ugly head during my college years, I would start off with using classic foam earplugs, something like this. Now, I've been made aware that that's not masking the triggers is not the thing to do, because as I learned in a recent appointment with an audiologist, that just, when you do take them out, it just magnifies the sound. Like, it's the trigger or the sound, the noise will seem louder than normal because you've been muffling it for so long or for most of the time. So anyway, so earplugs are definitely out of the question. I know instinctively you would want to go to earplugs, but unfortunately that's not the thing to do. That's not the thing that's going to help you get on with your life, from what I've heard. And anyway, and then when I was initially diagnosed with misophonia in 2013, I wore pink noise devices. They looked something like this, but they were beige. And these devices I'm currently wearing now are by Unitron, and they come in a case like this, like this. Yeah, so initially, I was wearing pink noise devices from 2013 to 2015, but that started to interfere with work. Where if somebody spoke softly or had an accent, it was hard for me to understand them. So I had to take a break from that, and any sort of progress basically plateaued, and eventually my misophonia got worse. So naturally, I went to another audiologist in 2018, and I was given musicians' earplugs. Now, do not use these I do not use that often. I typically use these if I were to go to a concert or a sporting event, or, well, mainly just to, sleep. And I use a white noise machine as well when I sleep. So, anyway, so the musician's earplugs, you can use from time to time. In certain settings, where your eardrums or your hearing's not going to be damaged or anything like that. So I got the current devices I'm wearing in 2020 during the pandemic, and initially they were set for white noise, and as I discovered last week, the white noise is too harsh. So I had my devices reprogrammed to feature a pink noise setting that I could switch to. So I would go from white noise to pink noise. I would basically, there's like a button, there's like this area right here. You just tap on it quickly and it automatically sets it from white noise to pink noise. And that's my current coping skill right now, using that whenever I'm around any people, like my parents, my coworkers, my boss. So, I hope these come in handy, for me when I go back to working. I work for a nonprofit organization that employs adults on the autism spectrum as well as adults with other developmental disabilities. Anyway, I go back to working at a kiosk in a mall at the start of September, like Labor Day weekend. So I hope these help me out with, any potential issues like kids throwing tantrums and things like that. I mean, there's only so much I know mall manager there's only so much that the mall manager, mall security can do. I mean, and I'm certainly not asking, for families and their kids to be, to leave the mall for good or anything like that. I would hope that parents, discipline their kids accordingly. Like, if they're misbehaving, acting out, causing a scene, having a temper tantrum, to where it's so loud, it's disturbing other people, not just people who are, special needs, atypical, but the neurotypical people in general. You would think that these parents would take their kids outside temporarily, briefly, to calm down and, handle them accordingly, but that doesn't always happen. So that's what I have to deal with at work, and I have to make the best of it, and reiterate to any supervisors I work with, my head boss, that this could potentially be an issue, where I might have to leave my shift early, or I'm because I'm too triggered. So that's something I have to make clear, that I have my limitations from time to time. And at a job where, special needs people are hired, hopefully my boss is understanding, that, look, there's only so much I can take of this, and I just need to, remove myself from the situation temporarily, or if it becomes too much, I'm gonna have to clock out early. I'm sorry. This is as far as I go right now. But yeah, so there's that. Now, going back to devices that I use, what I was mainly using during the mall shifts or any sort of venues, whether they were indoor or outdoor, I bought Commerce from Flare Audio. This is a brand that's in the UK, and they ship out to the United States. So they're hollowed out earplugs, basically. It's supposed to desensitize you towards your triggers, help you better cope with the triggers, but unfortunately for me, like the last 2 mall shifts I worked at, towards the end of June, I had to take those out and put in the foam earplugs, because, a toddler was carrying on for like 10 to 15 minutes straight at this mall, and I felt like I was being tortured. So I had to put the earplugs in, so I, didn't have to leave my shift or clock out early. I had to do what I had to do in that moment, but from here on out, I'm gonna, do my darndest not to put earplugs in that situation, as hard as that sounds. But, that's how I'm currently, that's with the devices I have, that's how I'm currently coping. I'm also coping by reading a book I recently ordered on Amazon, and the book is an adult's guide to misophonia: Regulate, Reason, Reassure, by Dr. Jennifer Brout, a woman I mentioned in my last video. And here's the book for adults um, with misophonia. And I've read the introduction and the first 2 chapters so far, and I found it very interesting, especially, the co-occurring disorder part, where anybody who has obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which is a new term I haven't heard before in regards to personality disorders. I mean, I was diagnosed with OCD, not specifically obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So I found that interesting. And anybody who has anxiety, apparently, and even someone like me who's on the autism spectrum, they're more prone to having misophonia. But again, not everybody who's autistic has misophonia, or even any sensitive hearing issues generally. Some will have tactile, like, like wet clothes or sweaty clothes against their skin, that will bother them, or something like that. Or they'll have an aversion to certain foods because of the taste or texture, or the softness or viscosity of the food you're eating. But again, everybody on the spectrum is an individual, just like every neurotypical person out there is an individual, has their own, preferences and traits that differ from others. So anyway, so I've been finding reading, Dr. Jennifer Brout's book helpful, and, ever since my appointment last week and me implementing my pink noise devices, I call them now, instead of, Bluetooth devices or white noise devices, they're pink noise devices. So, implementing those and reading the book, I have, a more positive outlook about my misophonia. And I see a better future for myself, and I do plan on orchestrating, reaching out to Dr. Brout further to initiate any sort of treatment. She would be helping me cope with my misophonia, with different coping skills and strategies and whatnot. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed that works out for me. Anyway, that's gonna wrap it up for this video, and I'm glad you all are here viewing, watching, listening to what I have to say regarding misophonia, and hopefully this is of some help to those who know that they have misophonia, or struggling with it, or suspect that they have misophonia. I hope it's very helpful and reassuring. Anyway, until next time, I will see you all in another video. Bye!